It all began with a single message in the family chat. The words blinked at me on my phone like an alarm I couldn't ignore. "We're taking your lake house for the summer!" A cascade of thumbs up emojis followed, little digital affirmations of entitlement. No one had asked. No one had paused to consider that it was mine. I didn't reply. I didn't warn them. I didn't yell, beg, or negotiate. I just let the silence stretch, taut and electric between us. My name is Chloe Bennett. I'm 34, and I've spent my life perfecting the art of quiet endurance, learning how to survive in the margins while everyone else occupied the spotlight. I work as a legal analyst in Boston, in a world where precision is currency and emotion is a liability. I dissect contracts, uncover loopholes, and calculate risk on deals worth billions. My colleagues describe me as ruthlessly analytical, unshakable, and entirely self-reliant. They are right. But what they don't see is the accumulation of decades spent being overlooked, fading into the background while others took center stage. My lake house on Lake Champlain, Vermont, is my sanctuary. I bought it 3 years ago with a bonus earned through 18 months of relentless work. Long nights, cold coffee, weekends sacrificed, hours blurring into one another. That purchase was an act of pure, unapologetic selfishness, and I have never regretted it. I remember the first day I saw it. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, mist rolling off the water in soft, gray sheets. The only sound was the gentle slap of waves against the weathered dock. I stepped onto the deck and felt a silence so profound it demanded nothing from me, judged nothing about me. In that moment, I realized I had found something sacred, a piece of the world that existed solely for me. Every plank, every pane of glass, every cent of property tax was mine, earned with sweat, sacrifice, and determination. I had created a place where I could exist on my own terms, free from expectation or obligation. My family lives in a neighboring state, close enough for convenience, far enough to maintain the illusion of distance. My parents, in their early 60s, still occupy the suburban Connecticut house where I grew up, a home cushioned by comfort and expectation. I send them checks each month for retirement, quietly ensuring their lives remain easy, their routines uninterrupted. My contributions are never acknowledged, only expected. And then there's my sister, Madison. She's 31, magnetic, radiant, always at the center of every family narrative. Her life is an endless performance of garden parties, brunches, new fashion finds, and flawless social appearances. And me? I've spent decades as the invisible pillar behind her light, ensuring everything runs smoothly, often at the expense of being seen, being heard, or even being remembered. I can recall the omissions in crystal detail. My 30th birthday comes first to mind. I had just finished a grueling case and mentioned over the phone that I was celebrating with a reservation at a Michelin-starred restaurant. "Oh, that's nice, honey," my mother said, her voice already distant. "Listen, I have to call you back. Madison's caterer is having a meltdown over the hydrangeas." And that was it. My birthday vanished into oblivion, a minor footnote compared to her dramas. Hydrangeas, dress fittings, table arrangements that became family legend. Every holiday, dinner, and casual phone call follows this same pattern. I learned to stop trying. I deliver sanitized, brief updates. Work is good. Boston is fine. No, I'm not dating anyone. I am the quiet benefactor, the reliable constant, the invisible moon reflecting her light. I nod politely as they dissect Madison's husband's latest business trip, her apartment redesigns, the perfect gift she found for a friend. I smile. I fade. But beneath this calm, I have always been collecting, storing, observing. Every overlooked birthday, every minimized achievement, every sigh of dismissal has been filed, indexed, remembered. And now, staring at that message in the chat, the familiar coil of resentment tightens in my chest. They assume I am pliable. They assume I will step aside without a word. They are wrong. I take a slow sip of coffee, letting the bitter liquid settle on my tongue like clarity itself. My lake house is not a public park. It is not a shared resource. It is not theirs. They have never respected the boundaries of my life. Yet here they are, attempting to impose upon the one place where I am sovereign. Madison will be at the center of the storm, Ethan proudly by her side, my parents nodding along, as if the world revolves around her approval. I scroll through the emojis again. Thumbs up, hearts, claps, a digital chorus cheering a plan that entirely ignores my existence. I do nothing. Not yet. I let the tension build, letting anticipation stretch taut. Every misstep they take, every assumption they make, every arrogance they display will be met not with anger, but with precision and strategy. For the first time in years, I feel that cold thrill of strategy. My life has been measured, contained, observed. But this is more than endurance. This is a test, and observation will serve a purpose beyond survival. I can see them virtually, assembling their plans like pieces of a predictable puzzle, completely unaware that I alone control the final image. The lake house is mine. Every plank, every quiet morning in the mist, every evening watching the sun turn the lake to molten gold. It is my fortress, and for the first time in a long while, I feel the stirring of what it means to defend it on my own terms. They think this will be easy. They think I will cave. They have no idea what is coming. I had known it was only a matter of time before they tried. That spare key I had handed my mother last summer, a mistake born of exhaustion and obligation, was now their golden ticket. Madison had called the night before, cheerful and insistent, laying out their summer plans with the casual arrogance only she could manage. "We're all coming up for June through August," she wrote. "Can't wait to turn the lake house into a real family retreat." My chest tightened at the audacity, but I did nothing. I let the message sit, watched it simmer like a pot left unattended. By mid-morning the next day, my phone buzzed with a flurry of confirmations. Aunt Claire had claimed the Lakeview bedroom. Uncle Peter volunteered to bring the grill. My parents, as if rehearsed, were eager to bless Madison's plan with approving emojis and a string of heart reactions. They treated my home as a communal playground, a backdrop for their convenience and amusement. I sat in my apartment, watching the chaos unfold digitally, feeling the old coil of restraint snap slightly tighter around my chest. I rose and poured myself a cup of black coffee, its bitterness grounding me. My mind, the same machine I used to parse multi-billion-dollar contracts, began calculating, strategizing. Years of being overlooked, of being relied upon without acknowledgement, had given me a unique clarity. The lake house wasn't just property, it was sanctuary, and they were about to trespass. I drove north the following morning, letting the cityscape of Boston recede behind me as the dense green forests of Vermont rose in its place. Each mile was a measure of separation, not just from the urban chaos, but from the long-standing expectations that had dictated my life. Before reaching the lake house, I stopped in Burlington to meet David, a security consultant I had researched meticulously. I outlined my requirements in exacting detail: multi-camera coverage of every entry point, motion-activated floodlights, and a direct automated dispatch to local law enforcement, bypassing any monitoring center delays. His eyebrows rose slightly at the intensity, but he nodded. "We can handle it," he said. By the time I arrived at the property, the technicians were installing discrete cameras beneath the eaves, running wires with surgical precision. I watched from the deck as they worked, feeling a strange sense of calm. This was no longer about anger or revenge. It was about asserting control, reclaiming what was mine. I met the locksmith shortly after and instructed him to replace every lock, front door, back door, sliding glass doors, every point of access. By late afternoon, I held in my hand 2 silver keys, the only keys in existence that could open my home. The weight of them felt absolute, a tangible confirmation of my sovereignty. The following morning, I watched as the first SUV rolled up the long gravel driveway, Madison stepping out in a sun-drenched floral dress, sunglasses reflecting the sparkling lake. Ethan followed behind, chest puffed with unwarranted confidence. They moved toward the porch with luggage, coolers, and designer totes, already treating the place as though it were theirs. I stayed inside, phone in hand, eyes on the security feed. Every movement, every step, every triumphant laugh was captured in perfect clarity. Madison reached into her purse for the brass key I had once entrusted to my mother. She paused, tilting her head, as if the key itself had betrayed her. She tried again. Nothing. Ethan took it, grunted, tried to force it. The handle did not turn. The solid cedar door stood impassive, silent. Aunt Claire's gasp drew attention to the camera above the porch, and I saw the realization ripple across their faces. They were being watched. Every move, every attempt at entitlement, recorded and documented. I picked up my phone and typed a single message to Ethan. "Try it. Police will be there in 3 minutes." I did not wait for a reply. I did not call Madison. I I did not answer any of the frantic, angry texts that began pouring in immediately after. I simply sat back, letting them confront a reality they had never anticipated, that my patience and compliance had limits they could not bend or break. I observed the scene on the driveway unfold like a slow-motion tableau of disbelief and rage. Ethan's face, once a mask of self-assured arrogance, now flickered with confusion. Madison's perfect composure began to crack in tiny, almost imperceptible increments. The rest of the family clustered around, whispers of, "What's happening?" and "Why isn't it opening?" mixing with the crunch of gravel underfoot. They were met with a power they had never expected, a strategy rooted in precision and foresight rather than brute force. For the first time, I felt a rush of clarity, cold, calculated, and unshakable. I had set the parameters, and they were now operating entirely within the boundaries I had defined. Their sense of entitlement was dismantled by the very tools they had assumed were neutral. And as I watched, silent and composed, I understood fully that this was more than a defense of property. It was the reclamation of my autonomy, of the years of oversight and dismissal, finally countered with deliberate, unstoppable force. The driveway had emptied, leaving behind the faint echoes of footsteps and the crunch of gravel. I stood at the back door of my lake house, the late afternoon sunlight bouncing off the water, turning it into a molten mirror. For the first time, the house felt completely mine, not just in theory, but in absolute control. The threat had passed. My family's assumptions had crumbled. Now it was time for the next phase. I sat down at my desk, my laptop open, the soft hum of electricity filling the quiet room. The first thing I did was log into my bank accounts. I scrolled through the long list of recurring transfers, each one a silent testament to years of unacknowledged labor and quiet compliance. My parents' mortgage supplement, Madison's car note, Aunt Claire and Uncle Peter's utilities. Each payment clicked through the edit menu, each one deleted with a calm finality. I paused only to let the reality sink in. For the first time in decades, I was no longer financially tethered to my family. The weight lifted from my shoulders felt physical, like a heavy coat I had been wearing without realizing. Next, I opened my contacts. Madison, block. Aunt Claire, block. Mom, block. Dad, block. Ethan, block. I worked methodically, deliberately, savoring the subtle, intoxicating satisfaction of each contact becoming inert, powerless to reach me. Every push of a button was a declaration. My life, my rules, my boundaries. I was not the quiet moon, the invisible supporter, the person expected to yield. I was Chloe Bennett, and this was my world. The lake house had always been my refuge, but now it was my realm in every sense. I poured myself a cup of strong black coffee and carried it down to the private dock. The mist still lingered over the water, the way it had on the first day I visited, but now I was seeing it differently. The silence was deeper, more deliberate. It belonged to me, not to anyone else's expectations or demands. I sat with my feet dangling over the edge, listening to the gentle lap of the lake against the shore. Each wave felt like a confirmation, a pulse of independence flowing straight into me. I spent the next days exploring the rhythm of a life entirely my own. Mornings began with coffee and pages of books I had been meaning to read for years. Thick novels, histories, biographies, stories I had postponed because my attention was always claimed by others. I swam in the cold, crystalline water, each stroke washing away years of overlooked moments, of invisible labor. I cooked for myself, savoring meals made not for anyone else's approval, but for my own pleasure. Seared scallops, spicy Thai curry, simple pasta dishes with fresh herbs. I ate slowly, watching the sunset bleed across the lake, feeling the profound luxury of solitude. Evenings were for reflection. I sat in the living room, the soft glow of lamps casting shadows across the walls, listening to the rain patter on the roof during a sudden summer storm. I felt no fear, no guilt, no compulsion to check in or justify my choices. The years of silent compliance, of bending my life to fit their expectations, had ended. This silence was restorative, almost sacred. And yet, freedom came with clarity, not emptiness. I realized how much of my energy had been siphoned, reserved solely for managing their dramas, anticipating needs, solving problems, mitigating crises that were never mine. That reservoir was now mine. I could think, act, dream without interruption. Every decision, every plan, every moment belonged exclusively to me. For the first time, I let myself imagine life beyond the lake house, beyond the careful containment of their expectations. I pictured myself traveling, investing in passions I had postponed, cultivating relationships not dictated by family dynamics. But right now, in this house, on this dock, I didn't need more than the misty lake, the cold water, and the quiet knowledge that I had taken back everything that had been silently stolen from me over the years. The storm rumbled across the water, lightning tracing patterns across the sky, wind rattling the windows, and for the first time, I felt truly safe, truly free, truly untouchable. Chloe Bennett had reclaimed her life, and no amount of entitlement, no barrage of texts, no assumptions of compliance could take it from her. The lake house was no longer just a home. It was a fortress, a declaration, and a promise to myself that I would never again shrink to fit anyone else's narrative. Returning to Boston felt like exhaling for the first time in years. The city hummed with its usual rhythm, taxis honking, pedestrians weaving through crowded sidewalks, but I moved through it with a new clarity, a confidence untethered from anyone else's expectations. Work awaited, as it always had, but now I approached it differently. Contracts, negotiations, multi-million-dollar mergers, they were no longer just obligations. They were challenges to dissect, opportunities to excel, territories to conquer with precision. My focus sharpened immediately. A complex acquisition, tangled in international regulations, landed on my desk. Before, I might have hesitated, wary of every misstep, every subtle risk. Now, I saw patterns where others saw chaos. I anticipated moves 3 steps ahead, drafting strategies that were bold yet meticulous. When I presented my plan to the senior partners, the room fell silent, the usual chatter giving way to focused attention. One partner leaned back, eyebrows raised. "Chloe," he said, slow and deliberate, "that's brilliant." The words were rare praise, but this time they carried the weight of genuine acknowledgement, and I felt a quiet thrill of satisfaction. It was during this time that I began to notice Mark Jennings. He was a senior strategist I had passed in hallways countless times, a presence I had acknowledged but never truly seen. Now, freed from the mental bandwidth I had long dedicated to family, I noticed him, the calm intelligence in his eyes, the dry wit in his observations, the way he respected personal space without hesitation. Our interactions began as late-night review sessions in the conference room, spreadsheets and legal documents spread across the table. He challenged assumptions thoughtfully, yielded gracefully when my logic was sound, and never pressured. It was refreshing in a way I hadn't realized I was craving. One evening, after a grueling session, he looked up from his notes. "I know it's late," he said, voice quiet, steady. "But would you like to grab a drink? Somewhere that doesn't taste like stale office coffee?" My old instinct would have triggered calculations, expectations, obligations, timing. But I smiled, simply, "I'd like that." That was all. No hesitation, no compromise, no guilt. We went to a small bar near the office, the kind with soft lighting and enough distance for privacy. Conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from work to books, travel, ideas, and the curious ecosystems of life. I realized I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen not for what I provided or endured, but for who I was and what I thought. Mark listened in a way that left space for me, that acknowledged me as complete and self-contained. The novelty of being fully heard, fully respected, was almost dizzying. Weeks turned into months. One drink led to another, and then to dinners, conversations stretching late into the night. Our connection deepened gradually, organically, without the constant calculation I had learned to apply to relationships or family obligations. He never tried to change me. He never questioned my need for solitude. Instead, he mirrored it, respected it, celebrated it. And I began to notice, in ways subtle yet profound, how differently life could feel when one's boundaries were truly honored. For the first time in years, I felt a life expanding around me. My work thrived, my mind sharpened by autonomy and focus. My heart, long tucked behind walls of compliance and habit, began to remember its own rhythm. And in quiet moments, sipping coffee at my lake house or reviewing contracts in Boston, I realized that freedom, once imagined, was now tangible, and I had claimed it fully on my own terms. The Sunday afternoon air was crisp as I walked up the familiar flagstone path to my parents' house. The facade hadn't changed in years, but I felt like a stranger entering a foreign country. Inside, the living room was arranged as if for a tribunal. My parents sat on the sofa, Madison and Ethan beside them. An empty chair had been placed for me across from them, a seat carefully chosen to make me feel seen but contained. I didn't take it. I remained standing by the fireplace, creating my own space, refusing to shrink into the role they had designed for me. My father, the self-appointed patriarch, cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming, Chloe," he began, his tone artificially warm. "It's been a difficult few months for all of us. Your mother has been beside herself. We've all been very hurt, but we're a family, and families forgive. We want to put this lake house situation behind us." I watched them, my expression calm, unreadable. My mother's voice trembled as she added, "I just don't understand how we got here. Madison just wanted to bring the family together. We thought sharing would be nice." Madison chimed in, her tone dripping with the practiced self-pity she had perfected over decades. "I never meant to hurt you, Chloe. I just thought you'd be happy to share. Isn't that what family does?" Ethan moved closer, protective arm brushing Madison's shoulder, his eyes narrowing on me as if I were some obstacle to be removed. I let their words hang in the air, a tapestry of entitlement and expectation. I noticed what was missing. Not an apology, not acknowledgement of wrongdoing, not even a hint of reflection. They were here to negotiate my surrender, not to make amends. I drew a slow breath, letting the calm settle around me like armor. "No," I said, my voice steady, carrying the weight of unshakable certainty. "No. There is nothing to negotiate." Their smiles faltered, the room shifting uncomfortably as my refusal landed like ice. My father opened his mouth, faltering. "But Chloe, it's perfectly reasonable." "There is no compromise," I interrupted, cutting him off without anger, without drama. "The lake house is mine. It has always been mine. Every decision, every nail, every sunrise over the lake belongs to me. Sharing it, dividing it, negotiating it, it isn't about fairness. It's about ownership, my ownership, absolute and unassailable." The realization struck them slowly. Their certainty, the habitual assumption that I would yield, crumbled in real time. Madison's perfectly rehearsed composure wavered, her mouth opening, closing, searching for a retort that didn't exist. My mother's eyes widened slightly, her hand to her chest as if the truth of my words physically struck her. My father sank back into his chair, stunned by the sudden clarity that their rules no longer applied to me. I paused, letting the room absorb the finality of my position. "You do not want unity," I continued, my voice calm but firm. "You want access. You want to manage my life, my property, my resources. That is not forgiveness. That is not compromise. That is expectation. And it ends here. I will no longer subsidize your comfort. I will no longer tolerate your assumptions. I will no longer shrink to accommodate your entitlement." I turned toward the door, the heavy weight of years of compliance finally lifting with each measured step. My family sat in stunned silence, the air thick with disbelief and shock. I did not look back. I did not wait for their response. I had spoken, and the boundary was absolute. Outside, the crisp autumn air filled my lungs. I closed the door softly behind me, each click of the latch a declaration of independence. The path behind me faded, leaving only my own steps forward. For the first time, I felt the absolute, exhilarating freedom of self-determination. The knowledge that my life, my home, and my choices belonged entirely to me, unchallenged and unassailable. The lake house, my work, my body of experience and intellect, all remained mine. I had reclaimed not just property, but sovereignty over myself. And in that moment, walking into the cool sunlight, I knew with complete certainty that the life I had built, the life I had fought silently to protect, was untouchable, unbreakable, and utterly mine. The chapters of compliance, of invisibility, of compromise with those who never saw me, were finally closed. Chloe Bennett was no longer anyone's footnote. She was her own story, fully written, fully realized, and entirely free. The weeks that followed felt like a rebirth. Boston's skyline shimmered through my apartment windows, but I no longer felt tethered by obligations I had long accepted as inevitable. Work became a canvas for my focus, precision, and audacity. Every contract I reviewed, every strategy I proposed, carried the weight of experience and the clarity of a mind unburdened by others' expectations. A project that once would have seemed daunting now unfolded under my hands with effortless mastery. Mark remained a steady presence, a mirror for the self I had only just reclaimed. We shared dinners, quiet walks, and long conversations, each interaction free of pressure or pretense. His respect for my boundaries, his patience, and his genuine curiosity about who I was, not what I provided, was intoxicating. For the first time, companionship felt like choice, not obligation. The lake house awaited me on weekends, a sacred retreat bathed in the mist of Lake Champlain. I swam in the crisp water at dawn, made myself meals I relished without worry of judgment, and read books I had long postponed. Each day, I woke with a sense of ownership over my own time, my own life, my own joy. My family's voices, once insistent and invasive, were reduced to memories, irrelevant in the face of the freedom I had carved for myself. Sitting on the deck one evening, the sun bleeding into the water, I realized the extent of my liberation. I was not just independent. I was seen, heard, and honored in my own right. For the first time, life felt expansive, exhilarating, and entirely mine. I want to know how this resonates with you. Have you ever reclaimed control over a part of your life no one else respected? Drop a comment, share where you're watching from, and tell me your thoughts. If this story inspired you, like, subscribe, and help it reach others who need to hear it. Because sometimes freedom begins with a single decision and a refusal to compromise.